Hello and welcome to From the Overflow. I'm Stacey Edwards and we are continuing our journey through the Psalms today. We are going to look at Psalm 9 today. So if you have your coffee and your Bible, let's dive right in. And as always, if you don't have your Bible, I'm going to read it to you. You need your own coffee, but you don't need your own Bible. So we're going to look at Psalm 9 today. And Psalm 9 has three elements that I really want us to focus on in our short time together. One is the grief of the psalmist. Two is the gratitude of the psalmist. And three is the character of God that takes the psalmist from grief to gratitude. We talked about this in our last psalm, that you often see these turning points where the writer goes from despair to hope or grief to gratitude. Those kind of transitions, pain to praise. We want to see those kind of transitions in the Psalms. And so Psalm 9 is longer. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we'll read a little bit of it. I'm going to begin in verse 1. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. I will recount all your wonderful deeds. I will be glad and exult in you. I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. So right off the bat, you see the gratitude. I will give thanks. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. So he's really expressing gratitude. When my enemies, verse 3, turn back, they stumble and perish before your presence. For you have maintained my just cause. You have sat on the throne giving righteous judgment. Verse 7, but the Lord sits enthroned forever. He has established his throne for justice. Verse 11, sing praises to the Lord who sits enthroned in Zion. So we're not going to read all 20 verses, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what is taking place here. So this is how I journal. I do a cheap 25 cents notebook from Walmart. So your girl doesn't do anything fancy here, okay? But I'm a big Bible journaler. I just find it very, I don't know, it just helps me to see it in print. I'm a list maker. I'm going to do arrows, boxes, all the things. But in this one, what we see in Psalm 9 is that the psalmist is dealing with a lot of grief. If you have your Bible in front of you, you'll see in verse 3, he's dealing with a lot of enemies. In verse 9, he talks about being oppressed and troubled. In verse 12 and 13, he says he's afflicted. In verse 18, he says, I'm needy and poor. He says he's hated. So he is dealing with some intense grief, hardship, afflictions. But he also expresses gratitude. So in verse 1, he talks about gratitude in the inner self. He says, I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. So there's gratitude in his inner self. There's gratitude with his words. He said, I will recount the wonderful deeds that the Lord has done. It's an ongoing state of being. I will be glad. Not just I'm glad now, but I will be glad. So his gratitude is a state of being. It's who he's going to be. And then it's directed to the Lord. I will sing praises to your name. So even in the midst of the affliction and the hatred and the need and the hunger and the poverty, he's choosing to be gracious, to be grateful. So in his inner being and in his words. And a lot of times we have to really make that an intentional choice. Like, I'm going to dwell on, as Paul instructs, what is right and good and pure and true. We have to reject those thoughts that are not of the Spirit, that do not encourage gratitude and hope and those sorts of things. So he chooses gratitude on the inside, and then he chooses gratitude on the outside. Even when I'm struggling with my words, I'm going to speak of your faithfulness. A lot of times, I think we sin most with our words. And when times are hard, sometimes we give free rein to our tongue. And that's never a good thing. Many proverbs, when we get there one day, will speak to how the foolish have many words. The foolish are very unwise in their words. So what we have here is the psalmist encouraging, even in the midst of grief, unfair treatment, enemies, affliction, poverty, we can still be grateful people. And we can do this because we know the character of God. So the psalmist tells us that God is just, he is righteous, that he does punish the wicked. That's verse 5 and 6. He's upright. He's a stronghold. He's mindful of us. We talked about this in the previous psalm. He is mindful of us. That is verse 12 of our current psalm. He hears our cry. He lifts us up. And then I think my favorite part of this, he actually says it in verse 4, twice in verse 7, and then again in verse 11, that God is on the throne. At the end of the day, whatever we're experiencing, God is still in control. He is not caught off guard. He's not unaware. He's not up there wringing his hands, wondering what to do. God is in control. So whatever it looks like, there is a God behind the scenes who is absolutely in control. And so the way we move from grief to gratitude is to constantly remind ourselves of the character of God. So I hope that brings you some encouragement today, because I know everybody's struggling. Like, I had a boss. I worked at Lifeway Christian Resources in Nashville for 10 years, and I had a boss who would say, be kind to everyone because everyone is having a hard time. And I think if we would just recognize that, everybody is having a hard time in some area of their lives. So the key is to always be grateful, to express gratitude, and to know that God is still in control. Your God is still in control. He still calms seas. He still raises the dead. He still heals the sick. He still encourages the lonely. He is still a father to the fatherless and a husband to the widow. Your God is now who he has always been. And so I hope that is some encouragement to you today as you go about your day. Thank you for tuning in. I'm getting the sweetest emails and comments from you, so I appreciate everybody that watches. Don't forget, we're almost to 60 subscribers, I think, in just one short week that we've been doing this together. So I always do this upside down. So don't forget that at 100 subscribers, we're giving this chronological study Bible away. And I've already been in contact with Tyndale, and they're sending me some prayer journals. So we have some good things coming. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and let YouTube know that this is the content you like. So I hope you have a great day. You are so loved. Bye-bye.